G'day everybody, hope you're well, hope you're having a fantastic weekend. I know that I am, but if you are maybe working or not having the best weekend, that is okay. Let's be honest, let's look at the positives. You're having a better weekend than Cricket Australia, and that's all we can ask for. But enough about the cricket, let's talk about the footy. And in this video, I'm going to be going over who I believe needs to have a career year in order to extend their career. They'll either make it or they'll break it. All of the contract lists were provided by Zero Hanger and Footy Wire, both fantastic organisations, both fantastic websites who provide lots of footy information. But there are a couple of caveats to this video, and the first one is I'm not going to be picking on rookies. They must have played at least multiple games in multiple years. I'm not picking on any blokes that might not have had the chance that they deserve or anything like that. They must have good footy experience underneath them. And the second thing is no veterans. Guys who I expect to retire might be in a separate video. These are going to be guys in their 20s that I believe on the last year of their deals are at a crossroads and they're either going to make it or the clubs will need to break it off. So that's it. Let's get stuck into it. Alphabetical order, one per club. Let's start with the Crows.
Part the seas, goes long, goal square. Himmelberg, one-handed, gathered his own crumb and kicks a ripper to change the momentum.
27 games might sound harsh, and he's still averaging around a goal a game, and this is in no way me saying that Himmelberg is not a good AFL player, but Adelaide need to look at a post-Tex Walker environment, and it's probably going to be at the end of the year. Is he and Darcy Fogarty the guys that you are trusting with taking the club forward? I don't think Adelaide are sure yet, and that's why this year we are going to learn more and more. Hasn't kicked 3 or more goals in a game yet. 27 games in, we would have liked to have seen a bag, a breakout, something like that. He's still got the year to figure it out. In no sense am I delisting the guy already. Just waiting and see. That's exactly what this list is about. But I think we and the Crows want to see a little bit more from Elliott. But let's move on to the Lions. And this one might be a little harsh, but let me explain.
Cockatoo just drawing the footy to him, taking the contact and snapping the goal.
I know that this might be harsh. 41 games, injuries have torn him down a little, but I was going to put Cam Ellis-Yeoman in this segment, but with the vaccine stuff going on, that I am in no way an expert to comment on what I think is going to happen or any of that in regards to COVID and the footy season. I didn't put Cam in here, but given the fact that Nakaya has had a good couple of years now, is his body ever going to be right, is the question. And if it's not this year, is it going to be any year? And here's a stat for you. Hasn't had 16 or more disposals in a game. 41 games. I know he's an impact player. You've got to be able to find the footy. So if he has a free run at it, I honestly think he'll make it. So I'm not saying, again, to get rid of the bloke. But, geez, we've got to see something here. Surely we're going to see something. I hope we do, because he's an excitement machine. But some consistency and some continuity is what's required. Otherwise, Brisbane are going to have to look elsewhere, especially since they drafted Kai Lohmann this year. But let's move on to the Blues, and 59 games now. That should be enough to tell us what we need to know, and we don't know yet.
Lots of Tigers in the air. Paddy Dow outside of the boot.
In order for Paddy, I think, to really make it and have that kind of season that really establishes the faith that Carlton have had in him, you're going to be looking at like a Darcy Parish style breakout. I know Darcy was consistently frustrating in the eyes of Essendon fans, at least the ones that I know, and I know plenty of them. Is Paddy Dow really going to have that year? Let's forget the fact that whether he does or doesn't have the talent. We probably don't know yet. We probably should know, but we don't. But considering he's got Cripps, Walsh, Chera, Hewitt, Kennedy ahead of him at this point, where does he fit? He's going to get squeezed out. So even if he plays all 22 games, that's 81 games at the end of the year. Are we still going to know if he's the 6th best midfielder in that, in that group? I don't know. But he's going to have to show us. And that's the point of the video. Let's move on to the Pies.
Side 50, slider towards to go. He bounced off his chest. Hoskin Elliott should finish him here. Sure it does. Here comes the...
Ultra durable doesn't necessarily mean you're the best fit. This hybrid forward thing that Collingwood have gone for with Hoskin Elliott and Brodie Myercheck, neither of them are number ones. And I don't think Hoskin Elliott is even a number 2. I think Myercheck has proven that he can be a pretty mobile and agile second tall, if you will. They still don't have a number 1 tall. I know they brought in Nathan Kruger, but this is a struggle for me. 157 games, that's plenty of footy. has had great highlights, has moved up the ground and gotten plenty of the footy before. But does Collingwood's best 22 look that disastrous without him in it? He's got a year to prove that. Let's move on to the Bombers.
Footy works so hard and generally...
Oh, look at that from Francis. Colossal mark. He has been so impressive over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
I feel for Francis because he genuinely could be anything, but his physical and mental health has brought him back at times, which is something that I can only sympathise with. But again, the question is going to be asked about a lot of these guys. Are the best 22s looking disastrous without them? Probably not. I would be surprised if Adelaide... I wouldn't be surprised, sorry, if Adelaide or Port made him an offer as he is a local boy, and I think that happened last year as well. But if he nails down a spot, he's got to keep it. Otherwise, he might be in a little bit of trouble. Let's move on to the Dockers.
Play for them. They've got to find a spot for him.
Banfield for the first of the afternoon. It's a good-looking ball forward. And the Dockers with their first major.
Well, Jared Healy loves him, which is a good endorsement. Jared's not a bad footy commentator and footy analyst, so that's all fine. But this hybrid forward thing, maybe it's just my pet peeve. I don't know how you guys feel, but you're either a tall forward or you're a small forward, but he's not even a best 22 forward, and that is a problem. Needs to be figured out pretty quickly because on paper, he's got the size, he's got decent enough speed, he's not overly quick, but his sidestep is fantastic as well, and a good finisher. On paper, that's best 22. He's not in their best 22. And considering that they've still got Michael Walters, Lockie Schultz-Stade, Sam Swikowski, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, probably haven't, even Sam Sturt, who Freo seemed to like. These guys seem to be ahead of him, so if he can make it, awesome. But I feel like at the end of this year, he's either going to sign a multiple-year deal or he's not going to be at the club. And I feel like if he doesn't stay at Freo don't want him at the end of the year, he's going to be that guy, that delisted free agent that everyone's going to go, oh, he could offer so much, but then might not get picked up. And if he has an outstanding year, then that spot is his. That's a good thing about Freo. They can still lock down these best 22 spots. It's up to him how he goes about it. Fingers crossed he stays fully fit. But let's move on to the Cats and a guy who was a genuine star at his first club and has been nowhere in the last 2 years.
Shoveled it out there, Cameron. G. Guthrie flicked it out magnificently. Dalhouse gets another look. The little sideways bender.
Here's a little fun fact about Lukey Dell. The highest disposals he's had in a game for the Cats is 24. Pretty decent. Not snubbing a 24 disposal game at all. Yeah, that was his debut for the Cats, and I think he's only had 6 20 disposal games since. He's not a forward pocket. Why are they trying to make him into one? He was brought to the Cats as like an injection into the midfield, maybe an X-Factor type, like he was at the Dogs, and for the last 2 years he's been nowhere. Why do they need another small forward type? Like, go get a younger kid. What's going on? This might be half Lukey Dell's fault if he, can't, because he's the best 22 player, it looks like. Chris Scott does like to play him. So the spot is his, but if he can't, produce at a decent level, why wouldn't they draft a small forward type and plug him in there? Brad Close has been very good. Tom Atkins has played a defensive forward style role. Lukey Dell, he's got 22 games here, or his career might be falling by the wayside, which is sad because he was one of my favourite Dogs, especially during that 2016 period. But let's move on to the Suns.
It had to be a well-placed ball. Gee, unlucky not to be given a free. It matters not. Great move. That's a better goal than if he got a free in a set shot.
He only kicked a 1-goal 6 last year. Darcy was reportedly shopped to North Melbourne, who said no. And he's not a hybrid forward in the Will Hoskin-Elliott type of way. He's kind of a hybrid small forward that can't figure out if he's a forward pocket that can rest at the feet of the talls or be a half-forward player with the elite tank. He's stuck in no man's land and needs to figure out which one of those he's going to be and then become a very, very good version of it, because half-forwards, this is going to sound harsh, but half-forwards and B-grade midfielders are the two most replaceable parts of a footy field, in my opinion. He needs to figure it out. He really does. Let's move on to the Giants.
That move there from Callum Ward.
Game 8, not sure he's had a bigger kick, gave it off, and the launch
Good honest role player is Daniel Lloyd, but at the end of the day, the Giants have done a lot of drafting in the last few seasons, and at the end of the day, guys like him, these good honest role players, might get squeezed out by younger kids. Leon Cameron has shown that he coaches really, really well with a younger group. Look at all the times the Giants were missing key players last year, and you'll know what I'm talking about. And he's a guy that could be squeezed out. He needs to add a couple of strings to his bow. It doesn't look like he's got a lot of strings. He's a good tackler, and his aerobic capacity looks really good. But when you watch the Giants, he's not really a guy that stands out a lot. And at the end of the day, it's a ruthless business. If someone younger than you can play a similar role than you, and the Giants can save the cap money, they probably would. Not that I think Lloyd's on a massive contract anyway, but he's got the 22 games to figure it out. I hope he does. Experience means a lot in the AFL, and he's got quite a bit of it. But let's move on to my Hawks, who have got about 12 wingmen, it looks like, at the moment. But one of them started last year like a house on fire, but he might be in a bit of trouble if he gets squeezed out.
Not quite Royce, but it's just as effective. In front, can't miss from there. That's 5 goals in a row.
I do like Harry, and his first 6 to 8 weeks of 2021 was simply extraordinary, and then injuries didn't help. But like I said, the wings and the defense are Hawks' biggest strengths at the moment. He's not a midfielder at all. He's just not. And given the fact that the outside run have got guys in there that are better kicks than Harry is, he might be in a little bit of trouble. Reports are he's going well on the track, which is fantastic, and I can't wait to see his development. But of all the uncontracted guys at the Hawks, I think he might be a little bit nervous. It's always going to be stiff looking at the reigning Premier, but we've got to do it. Here is my nomination for Melbourne.
Up the barrel to give him a lift if he nailed this. Oh, he's screwed on! He's nailed it! Is it going to go straight? That is unbelievable!
We've had one hit wonders, we've had one game wonders, but one torp wonders? Nah, sorry mate, no. You can run fast, awesome. But when you didn't play in the premiership team and you're out of contract at the end of the year, I'm not telling you that your career's on the line. Clearly Melbourne are. And if they're talking dynasty and you're just a role player, they might get someone younger in. That is always the way. And they drafted really well this year, in my opinion, the Ds. So Jaden Hunt might be in a little bit of trouble. And if I'm being completely honest, kind of forgot he existed. That's not a good sign. Maybe it's on me, but it's not a good sign. Let's move on to North. 101 games this guy's played, and I still don't know what kind of player he is.
And on the end of it is Turner, who's doing the tagging job, and he's putting the damage on the scoreboard as well.
I know he's tagged before, but he hasn't really had shutdown games that make you sit up and take notice. He's only had 3 games of 20 or more disposals. He doesn't look threatening enough to be a forward. I think he's going through an identity crisis right now, and I hope David Noble can fix it up, because 101 games, that's nothing to sneeze at. But if they can't figure out the absolute perfect role for him, he's going to be in trouble. Contract year, it's a good time to play your best footy. Let's see what you got, KAYNE. Let's move on to Port.
Challenged. Gives it off to McKenzie. He's got the massive left big ball, massive ball.
Maybe I'm overhyping the bringing in of Sam Skinner, but as far as I'm concerned, Port Adelaide have looked at it like they can't take down the Gorillas. And goodness gracious me, they need to. They've been exposed in a couple of finals. If Skinner plays round 1 and McKenzie doesn't, that tells you everything that you need to know. If the Cannon does play round 1 and Skinner doesn't, then that is the epitome of make it or break it. But this could be the only time where a player's make it or break it could be decided in round 1. Because if they're both fit and they go with Skinner, that's alarm bells for me. Let's move on to the Tigers. Josh reminds me of a line cook, as someone that's been in hospitality for quite some time. He's more noticeable when he makes a mistake, especially if it's a glaring one, which he has a tendency to do. Thought he was a really good player at Geelong at times. He was a really explosive sub. He's had some good games for the Tigers, but at the end of the day, given how much Richmond have drafted in the last couple of years, they know they're only 1 or at best 2 years away from their era ending, and they need to blood some new youth. He got squeezed out last year. It's up to him whether he gets squeezed out again. Personally, I think he does, and he might be in a little bit of trouble, but we shall see. But it's time for the Saints.
Puts it lace out to him, runs onto it, thinks about going for home. He'll love that.
I'd argue no one has more frustrating B graders on their list than the Saints, and although Kent does seem to pop up at important times, they've got youth that could potentially take his spot. I know he's strong in the contest and he's a big long kick, but if you're trying to win a game and guys can pop up, are you really relying on Dean Kent? For 22 games, they absolutely might, which is why he's in the make it or break it. But I think the Saints would be looking at their list at the end of the year, especially if they don't make finals, and going, geez, there's going to be some blokes in trouble. Whoever's out of contract at the end of 2022 is going to be in trouble. I think he's going to be in trouble. Let's move on to the Swannies.
Yeah, no, handball out. I'd forgotten all about Ronk. Forgot about his 5 goals. Now he's got 6. Oh, that is special.
Speaking of one-game wonders, Ronk's game against the Hawks just reminded Hawks fans that Sydney blokes just have career best days against us and we can't really stop it. Think of Mitch Morton in 2012, for example. But what Ronk is doing that's keeping him out of the side from an outsider's perspective is his real lack of defensive pressure. Sam Wicks does it really well. He's not going to kick out Tom Papley, as we know. But can he get back into that side? I think that he can. But this is a guy that kicked 7, helped win Sydney a game off his own boot only a couple of years ago, and has seemingly drifted off into the sunset. This isn't breaking news that I'm saying, this is just fact. If he's not a part of the 22 this year, why are they keeping him? These are the questions that I am pondering in this video, of course, with multiple players. So we'll see how they go. Let's move on to the Eagles.
Oscar Allen, but he's up to it, you know how good he is.
Very formal now, Nathan.
Wow.
And that is a magnificent. Oh, wow. It is a magnificent.
He's a silly boy off the field. As we know, the drunk driving incident isn't great. But with Willie Rioli, Liam Ryan, Jamie Cripps, Jake Waterman, and potentially Jack Petruccelli fighting him for a spot on that best 22 list, Jermaine might be in a little bit of trouble. So he's got the 22 games to put his hand up and go, Simo, I am the man. I think he can play maybe a wing role as well if he increases his aerobic capacity. But again, that's up to him to see how he goes. That's the whole point of this list. Personally, I think he might be in trouble. But let's get to the last player, the Dogs. And this one might be the most controversial.
Fed it to Young, who goes to Johannesson. 100 points coming up perhaps here.
Who'd have thought a Norm Smith medalist was struggling? But then again, who would have thought Mitch Wallace wouldn't be able to make the best 22 for the Doggies? JJ now as this defensive forward, threatening, speedy type was fine a couple of times. I know he had a very good preliminary final, so that is a huge tick for him. But if he's not that explosive halfback, if Caleb Daniel and Bailey Dale and Bailey Williams and these guys have proven to be, the best halfbacks, are you really having JJ as a half forward? Really? I mean, a wing would make more sense, but they've got really good depth. So where is JJ at? It's the final year of a good deal that he got. Is it his last one? Personally, I'm not sure, and I want to see more. So that's it, guys. Comment below. Let me know who you think I was harsh on, who you think is spot on about. Who do you think from your club might be in a bit of trouble at the end of the year? I will do a predicted retirements video as well. I've got a Brownlow video coming. Plenty of stuff coming. One more week of Supercoach videos as well. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you take care. I hope you're staying safe. The sun's out. Looking forward to the rest of the weekend. Goodbye.